behalf of the Toronto Book Fair by proxy on Skype with a new sci-fi fantasy author, D. Wolfsbane of Ottawa. So it's wonderful. Markham! Excuse me. I'm sorry. Maybe it was me being a little frazzled here. Pardon me. From Markham.
Yes.
So it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us today. And you have a debut novel called The Ninth Scripture. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Hunt.
The series is The Ninth Scripture. The first one's called The Hunt.
Could you please tell us about your debut novel?
So the Hunt starts on a planet called QS, where there's a world at war, where two nations have been fighting for as long as anyone can remember. The males are conscripted when they come of age to fight in the war, and the women are sent to nurtures to birth more soldiers to replace those they bury. Main character is Zakir. She's an orphan who's kind of given into this fate, though she wishes she could find another way around it. And she ends up getting tested and found to have the talent, which is telekinesis, telepathy, all that cool stuff you wish you could do, and taken to a school to kind of learn and foster these abilities. But it's not quite the salvation she thought it was at first, amid sanctioned fights, discrimination, and then one desperate act kind of snowballs into another until everything kind of goes out of control, and she eventually finds a clue to her past that sends her on a journey.
Okay. What were your inspirations for your debut novel?
So I've always been a creator. I've always loved creating stories, games, kind of anything I really could at any moment. So this story in particular, The Ninth Scripture, was the one story as a child that I kept coming back to, because in my spare time I'd play imaginary games, and I'd go off and do a bunch of different things, create a bunch of different characters, and storylines and worlds, and this is the one I just kept coming back to again and again and again. So I came back to it 6 different times, which created the 6 different parts that made up the 3 books that is going to be this trilogy when complete. So yeah, that's kind of where it began, and it's kind of always been my love. That one story I really wanted to keep a record of, because it was my childhood game. That was kind of my main one.
What makes your debut novel unique for its genre?
There's a few different things. I think one of the main things is how it's organized and created. It's meant to be fast-paced, and to give the reader credit. So like, I don't start with, let's say, an action scene like a lot of these ones tend to. It kind of builds into the world and creates a world that people can feel at home with and kind of escape into. And the big thing with it is it's extremely dense, because I find that I like novels that have a lot of world, a lot of characters, a lot of plot kind of built into it. And so I very much made it fast, dense, and very intricate, because there's a lot of different moving pieces that kind of come together, and you can kind of pick and see them as you go through, and hopefully piece them together. But yeah, it's really with the fully realized world, and it's a completely different world that no one has entered before.
So a question to obtain your book then, who is your publisher and how would one go about purchasing your book?
So you can find my book on Amazon.ca. I ended up choosing to self-publish this book because I decided for this one in particular, for this story that was really close to my heart, I wanted it to be very true to itself, still developed, and because it's vastly different than what it once was, it's much better than it had been initially through all the edits and such. But I really wanted it to have a bit of an unusual structure, because a lot of traditional publishers like their formula because that's what sells and works, but I really wanted to create something new and different, and create a lot of plot twists that you wouldn't see coming and kind of build in new ways. So you can find it on Amazon.
Okay. Now, you and I spoke in our virtual green room earlier today, and we found out that we both share a passion for tabletop gaming. And I'm very proud of that, by the way. So
I love it. Anytime I can play, I'll be there.
Excellent, excellent. Although I must say, you came to the Dungeons and Dragons table a little late, but that's okay. You're just a child. That's all right.
That's what happens when you aren't bored when it first comes out. You know?
Touche. So, can you talk to us a little bit about the process of world building? Because I get the impression that you're a world builder. You're not just a novel. You're a world builder. So please talk to us about that.
I think I built a bunch of different ones, and I think you really have to start with a premise of the people or something that you really want to explore with the world. So for my novel, it was very much about the talent and how that would craft and create different cultures and places and people. In terms of D&D and other worlds, so I play Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of the role-playing games we had discussed earlier, and it's very much about having wizards in different races and such that kind of populate that, and so it's about how to bring those out in an interesting and unique way that kind of hasn't been seen before when I build those worlds. And so it really depends on what type of world I want to build and what I really want to get across with the world and what I really want to explore in it.
So when you're world building, do you use any kind of mapping method? Do you use a flip chart, virtual or real, to join ideas or timelines? I'm a huge fan of Tolkien, and you look at the appendices, and I mean, there are thousands of years detailed there. I mean, it's just incredible. 50 years it took one man to create this legendarium. So this is what I really love. Do you do something similar to write out timelines and things?
Yeah, so I initially started a long time ago, at least with my novel, pen and paper with a bunch of different notebooks. And each notebook was kind of something different, whether it was the different wars that might have happened before, whether it was different cultures and about their customs and ways and celebrations and calendar, like all the different things that would make up a culture. So I started with pen and paper in different notebooks, and then I kind of moved on to using different documents and kind of linking the documents together. So I have a folder with like pages and pages. I have more pages probably written in background than I do in the first novel of like the different places and people and such. And so they're kind of categorized, and then you have like a main table that kind of can link me to all the others. So I know where to find everything because it's just so much, because I like creating, a fully realized place is more than anyone can really keep in their head all at one time. So you have to be organized and have it all. So I tend to use Word documents and such for that.
And what were the inspirations for your world, the backdrop of your debut novel?
So there's a few different places and different cultures. The one setting is very militarized and is very much about exploring kind of a mix of technologies within that world, kind of what it's becoming. The culture is very geared towards the war and the fighting. Another place is the inspiration more comes from the elements and different settings. So each of the cultures and people there are based on, like, you have a group that lives in the plains, a group that lives by the ocean, a group that lives in the forests and the mountains, and their cultures and everything have kind of been built on that, but there was an origin point. And so all of them have similar threads that kind of can lead through them, and then they kind of have diverged over time, and depending which one diverged first and second also creates how much further they are from the original type. And so there's kind of this interconnectedness between them, and it's almost very elemental or earth-based, and then there's kind of been divergences from that. But all of that one especially links back to this idea of the talent and how society would be structured very differently and everyone has the ability.
Mean to you then?
So the talent is a bunch of different things. It's an energy-based system because I'm a big fan of it not just being, well, you can do anything. No, there's an actual system by which this works, and that's where some of my background documents come from. So it's an energy-based system where everyone has, and anyone who has the talent essentially has this inherent ability to be able to move energy, essentially, because science, energy is matter and matter is energy. It's kind of interchangeable.
Yes, the equivalency relationship of Einstein, yes.
Yeah, E equals mc squared. And so there's kind of this equivalency. And so they're able to kind of take energies and use it in a way that we as humans right now can't. And so they're able to kind of tap into that and manipulate it. And so what does that mean in terms of their abilities? Well, they can use it to communicate. They can use it to move things. They can use it to kind of create barriers. They can use it in more condensed forms as projectiles. So they can use it in a bunch of different ways. And through that, they can create a society where you don't have the reliance on electricity and other types of technology that we've created, because they're inherently able to do a lot of these things. And since you can kind of encode the message into this energy and have it almost, if you do it the right way, you can kind of have it work on its own in certain scenarios. It allows them a lot more freedom in terms of what else they can do with their time.
If you had to classify your work in a genre, would it be fantasy, science fantasy, like Star Wars, for instance, or science fiction? Because you're now mentioning this ability to do things that kind of transcends technology, and that technology shouldn't be redundant to that, right? So what would you classify your work as?
I tend to classify it under sci-fi fantasy because the fact there's a mix of the two. It's kind of melded the two genres together within it, because it also depends where you are, whether you're more in the technological sense and space travel type sense, and then you have another version where it's very sword fighting, elemental based, using what kind of looks like magic to the outside, but has an energy kind of built into it. So it's kind of a mixture of the two. So I can't really put it in one or the other. It is both at the same time.
Okay. Who is your target audience, and what would you like them to get from your work?
So my target audience is young adults, so anywhere from teenagers up into the 20s, up to 30. And really it can be for anyone, because it is very clean, so you can keep it for young audiences. Even older ones can very much connect. I really want for them to, there's a bunch of different things. It depends what they take from it, because I think that's one of the beautiful things that I've realized when I've been getting feedback and reviews is everyone's kind of taken something different from it. And that's what I like about having it so dense and having it so intricate with all these different moving parts is some people took away the idea of gratitude from it. Some people took away, they just found it was a wonderful escape and they loved the world and wanted to be there. Some people ended up just really connecting to certain characters and taking kind of the love or some little tidbits of wisdom or different things. And so I want people to take away whatever is most meaningful to them, essentially, from it. As long as they like it, enjoy it, take something positive from it, then I'm happy.
What fantasy and sci-fi worlds or universes or legends are you a fan of? And what are the pros and cons in your mind of those particular modalities?
So one of my favorites, I do really love Doctor Who. It's one of my favorites. And
like pre David Tennant or post or during or what?
New Who, essentially. So anywhere from 2005 to now.
Okay.
I tried watching some of the classics, and they're good, but they've definitely dated a bit over time. So very much the New Who is where I've kind of stuck in. I love about it is the amount that you can explore in that. And I think it really shows from episode to episode is the fact that you can have so many different types of things happen because you have all of time and space to be able to play with, essentially. And so you can do a historical episode, then jump into like a horror episode, and then jump into something that's more like a psychological thriller. And so I find that one's very interesting in the sense that it's basically the largest sandbox you could possibly create to play in. And then the other thing is the wonderful idea of having a main character who can regenerate, because then you can essentially go infinitely with this idea. And with that, they kind of build and grow, and every doctor is different, and everyone brings something different to the table. And so I like the changing aspect. I love how it evolves over time. It doesn't ever really stay stagnant. And I love, yeah, all the different parts that kind of can come together and all the different things you can explore within such a world.
Cool. Any other ones besides Who?
Oh.
Whovian, you're a Whovian?
So many. I go a lot of the classics, like Lord of the Rings, I absolutely adore. They did those movies fantastically. Can't complain with them. Yeah, I've watched all the classic type stuffs with that, Star Wars, Star Trek, and all the different worlds within that. Even Firefly, for those who stuck around for
Oh, yeah.
10 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Serenity was a fantastic movie. That was post Firefly.
Yeah, and then Serenity was good. And then into different novels that I like, which was Harry Potter was kind of in my age group growing up, and so that was one of the ones we kind of hung to. Though one of my favorite series is Pendragon.
Yes.
Preteen series, and I absolutely love that one, and all the differences that, again, it's just the variety of things that kind of come within the one series.
Well, that's fascinating. Now, we spoke earlier, and I know a little bit about you. Could you please inform our viewers a little bit about yourself? So what's your educational background? What do you do, as much or as little as you're comfortable divulging? Oh, by the way, D. Wolfsbane, is that a pseudonym?
Yes.
And how did you choose that?
There's a bunch of different things to it. One of the ones was Wolfsbane is kind of a name I've written on different role-playing forums and such that I've used in the past, and kind of really felt like it was my writer's name when I started going into that. I love planting and gardening and things, and so Wolfsbane is an herb, if people don't know.
Yeah, doesn't it protect you from lycanthropes or something?
In those settings, yes.
Yeah.
Poisonous. So.
No, in real life, I've got some around here somewhere, don't I, over there? Sorry.
But yeah, and so D is my original initial, and also I always kind of love the idea of having the initials DW, because it's a big part of my DW.
Or Doctor Who, yeah.
And there's so many good DWs that there's a bunch of different.
And I know you played varsity hockey at a high level. Were you a champion hockey player?
So I played hockey for a number of years at a high level. I was a goalie, and I played junior for 3 years and then played varsity for my last 2 years at university. We won silver. I don't know if you say that win or loss. We ended up getting the silver in the OUAs for the 2 years that I was there and playing. And the second year, my final year at university, we ended up, the first game in the finals was against Queens, and we ended up breaking the record for the longest game in men's or women's intercollegiate history. We were 9 minutes shy of the NHL record.
What was that?
It started at, it was 167 minutes of gameplay.
3 hours, wow.
Yeah, it started at 7:30 at night. We finished at 1 a.m. and we were all done.
Wow.
After that.
Yeah, especially as a goalie, being in net like that, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, we were six overtimes, and there were 20-minute overtimes after the first one. And so I was like, I don't even know what net I'm going to now. I just know that we're here. Yeah, it was definitely a moment and a memory that.
Does your sporting background inspire or inform any of your writing work?
I think yes and no. Like, I don't really I guess I did actually kind of have a few sporting moments within it at times, but I think a lot of the stuff that I took from my athletic background kind of finds its way in, both from like the triumphs and defeats through the politics that comes from high level sports, through a lot of the things I kind of learned about myself and about others through the process. So I think it comes out in small little ways, but it definitely, like, I can think about different moments that I kind of have pulled from. There's this one where Zakir is kind of in a sporting event, and a lot of the self-talk and different things that kind of happen within that was from my time as a goalie, essentially.
And being a high school teacher, science, biology, and chemistry are your teachables. See, I remember. And does that inform your writing? And if so, how?
Well, I think being in the sci-fi genre, you kind of have a little bit of a science background always to begin with, because I think that's part of why we're attracted to that genre. It's okay, now we know some of this base science, how do I push that, or what could actually be possible based on what you already know? And I find it fascinating, the different things that, if you look at the biological world, because my degree was wildlife biology at university, and so when you look at the biological world, it's just so magnificent how everything works and how it's kind of very interconnected and very efficient in a lot of what it does. And then you think about, okay, well, how can that essentially be pushed or brought into a technological setting? And I find that's very interesting. And it's also where I love the creation of different animals and plant life and things like that within the worlds that I make, because I'm like, well, this would make sense. This was kind of the base body type, because we kind of have that as a vertebrate. As a mammal, there's kind of a base symmetry and body type. And
the Hox gene, right?
Yeah. And how would that kind of change and modify if it was a slightly different version? And what would that look like? And what other possibilities would come from there? So, I don't know, a bunch of different things when it comes to my science background.
Cool. Now, being a high school teacher, I mean, you don't have a lot of time. I know what high school teachers do. I know the demands on their time, especially if they're involved in extracurriculars. I don't know how you find the time to write, but how do you inspire this creativity in your students or in the school in which you teach? I know one way already.
One way is through my Dungeons and Dragons club that I run on Fridays after school. And right now I've got 13 students in this club, and they love it gives them a place to unwind and to create fantastical stories. And basically it's cooperative storytelling, which is what I love about it. And then other ways is within the classroom, I try to come up with, so there's a bunch of, within your lesson, trying to come up with different ways that kind of get them to start asking the questions instead of you always giving the answers, which can become a tendency in a lot of times and places, but also creating different assignments that are unusual and unique. So I created this one using some stuff from NASA for the grade 9 science, and it was for their space unit. And so it's basically them designing a shuttle to Mars, and the different, how you would have to look at the cost and the energy and the mass that's kind of required, and how would you actually create something that can fulfill your mission requirements, but then also keep it under budget, keep it so that it can actually fly there and make it there and land and do what it needs to do. So it's creating different things when I have time to essentially be creative and come up with interesting and unique projects that they can really then take and explore and build their critical thinking skills to come and answer the questions that are being asked.
So authors often write to depict flaws in our present day world and how they would like to envision a more ideal society, a more ideal world. What would the ideal world be for D. Wolfsbane?
I think one that very much connects with nature, which is why I have so much nature based within this story, because I think in a technological world and setting, we kind of become disconnected quite often from our roots. And so I think that's one of the big things. And I think another thing is trust and truth. Because in this day and age, with so much that you're not sure about, so much that is false and just flat out lies sometimes. I think being able to have a world where it's very much about truth. And so this story that I've created is very much about truth versus perception, and the idea that perception is never the truth, that when your way of viewing an event automatically changes what the event is because of your own biases, because of your own history. And so it really gets brought to the forefront in the later books how perception has kind of motivated the different parties to do what they do. But in terms of an ideal world, yeah, very much about truth, very much about getting back to nature basics. I love hiking and going outside, and so anytime that you can kind of be amongst that and kind of have a very simple, connected life, essentially, with that and a lot of community with people around and building that.
So as an extension of my previous question, and maybe we can go into a little more detail, what do you think some of the pitfalls are of living in our current modern world?
So there's a few different things. I think social media and technology has been made to be addictive. And even a lot of the creators who have created these platforms have said that. It was made to be addictive. It was made to have people want to sign in and get likes and post. And so we kind of fall into that trap because, well, it does give a dopamine hit. It does make you want to actually keep doing it. You end up getting that good feeling with it. And so we end up falling into that trap. But the issue becomes if you never learn to shut off your brain, it just keeps going and going and going. And this manifests as anxiety. And it's kind of a lot of the anxiety that we see in the world and that I also see in my students a lot of the time. And a lot of it is from social media presence, but also the fact that they never stop. If people are given 5 minutes in a waiting room or somewhere else, what do people do? They pull up their phones and play a game or check their messages. And then your brain just keeps going and going. And without a break, it forgets how to take a break. And so to kind of combat that, that's where a lot of the mindfulness and meditations that a lot of people have started looking into and kind of trying to build into their lives have come from, is because of this essentially anxiety induced by technology.
That's you have a unique position as a teacher, certainly, with all the artificial dopamine hits that the students get, right? I mean, we're not living in an age where this was ever possible before. So, well, I have a question for you then. One of your young high school students comes up to you and says, Dungeon Master Wolfsbane, can you please give me some advice on writing? I want to be a writer. Tell me what to do. Give me some advice.
First of all, write what you love. What is it that inspires you? What story do you want to tell? What story attracts you and makes you want to put pen to paper? And start there and just write, because the only way to become better at doing anything is just by doing it again and again. So, and even if you don't think it's any good, even if you don't think you're going to get anywhere with it, do it because it's something you love to do. Because so often people forget that and then just kind of go about their lives without actually really living it. And so if you want to write, then just start writing what you love, and then look for people who can help you make it better. Look for what you can do to
Okay. Now, your first book, your debut novel, The Ninth Scripture, The Hunt. What are the titles of the subsequent 2 books, and when can we expect to read them? Are they out already? I started to do my research.
So the next book is called The Awakening. I'm going to keep the last book title for me right now.
Okay. Mystery.
The Awakening is being currently written. My goal is by kind of 2022 to have it finalized.
Okay.
So a bit of time, but yeah, so It's
Are the themes different in the sequel and
yeah,
in the no? Okay.
yes and no.
Yeah.
So there are certain ones that carry through the whole thing. So truth versus perception definitely carries through, but the very first one is very much about finding a home and finding that place where you can belong. Well, they much have found that. So now it's kind of the next step of finding how you kind of work within that culture and how can I be me yet still belong, right? And kind of finding yourself within a larger context. And so there's changes to the themes, but there's also a few that kind of run through the entire trilogy.
Okay. And do you have a website? Is there a way to read about you and your work?
Yes, so my website is dwolfsbane.com,
Okay.
so you can find it there. It mostly has the blurb for the book. You can sign up for my email list if you want to know about different topics, whether it's just when another book comes out or whether it's for Dungeons and Dragons stuff or different events that I might be attending. So there's a few different options for what people might be interested in. You can also follow me on Twitter at D_Wolfsbane. And that's kind of where I give a lot of my updates, post different things about what I'm interested in or what different things that I've been watching and thoughts and ideas, updates about writing and so forth.
Are your students members of your Twitter?
No, I tell them I'm not going to tell them what my pen name is until they
Okay.
graduate. Not allowed to.
Oh, okay. I like it. All right. Yeah, a little bit of a mystery there. Okay, that's wonderful. Do you have any final words, any final message you would like to make? You've got the Skype here, and we're listening.
I think it's just that if people are interested in reading something that is fast-paced, that is dense, that is a fully realized world, and like just escaping within it, if they tend to find other things more slow, very predictable, and want something that's faster paced, unpredictable, then this might be a good story for you. And I hope that if you do pick it up, that I hope you enjoy it and that you take something positive from it and share it with the world, because I'm all about trying to share the things that I love with others, which is why I decided to publish in the first place. And so I hope you keep sharing your truth and your life and keep spreading the love between all of us.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Dee. And it's been an honor and a pleasure conducting this interview with you. And I wish you all the best with your 2 future installments. Are you planning another series after that or a parallel series? I'm just curious.
I've already been coming up with different worlds and things that I also want to get to and write. So I have a whole other world that's building my head. I got a few one-offs that are in my head, so I will keep writing. So.
Is it the same universe though? Different worlds, same universe? Haven't decided?
I expect to build a new universe and create some new stuff.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably come back to it at some point, but this is kind of, so I'm going to keep building and creating new things, kind of what fits for the day and age that I feel like. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again. I really appreciate it, and all the best to you and your students, and I hope to meet you in person someday.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate with what's going on right now, but we're dealing with it as best as we can. So thank you for your patience and allowing the Skype interview. And once again, Dee Wolfsbane, new sci-fi fantasy author, and we look forward to your future works in a creative process.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Are you a writer? Are you seeking to self-publish high-quality and mass-marketable books? Would you like to avoid the typical low-quality self-published book that generally sells less than 50 copies? Here are top 10 ways Agora will make your book look like a potential bestseller. AgoraPublishing.com services include: number 1, ISBN registration; 2, cataloging in publication or CIP registration; number 3, books in print basic for Canada and the US; number 4, books in print international to get your book sold with online booksellers internationally; Number 5, copy editing for basic grammar and typos. Number 6, substantive editing for style revamping and other consulting. Number 7, typesetting, layout, and graphic design essential for that professional look. Number 8, book cover design. Number 9, book website and author blog design along with search engine optimization, often just called SEO, and also search engine marketing, otherwise known as SEM. 10, agorapublishing.com even provides book distribution, agency services, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Go to agorapublishing.com today and find out how they can make you a great selling author. That's agorapublishing.com. agorapublishing.com.